uh, as a whole, no, the world as a whole. Actually, there are three um, periods before the Enlightenment period. No? Actually, the Enlightenment period is just one of the paradigm shift or the or scientific revolutions of history. No, if we look at it the historical in a historical materialistic sense. So first of all, no, way back in ancient time, panahon nilang Aristotle and Plato and Socrates and other Greek scientists and thinkers, no? Well, Aristotle is the first astrologer or the first scientist. Well, they believe that during those period, no, the framework was in a cosmocentric way, no, the cosmocentric period. It is believed that the universe is the giver of meaning. That is why the first sciences, the scientists were mere observers. They observed the nature of the universe or observe the universe, letting it reveal itself. No? So, moto, ang gawa sa mga first sciences like mathematics, like astrology. Well, astrology is one of the major sciences yun sa una, no? Well, Aristotle was also an astrologer. Well, as an astrologer sa una, in order for you to know or to decipher the mystery of the universe, you need to observe nature. So, moto siya, cosmocentric. The universe is the giver of meaning. And after the cosmocentric period, we transition ourselves to the theocentric period, no? Wherein people believe that God is the giver of meaning. That explains why in the medieval era, the in church history, no, the church was very powerful, no. That also expresses about the supremacy of the Catholic religion. Buhi gyapon until karon, no. So grabe sa una ang dogmatism, no, sa unang panahon, no. During the theocentric period wherein God is the center of meaning, no, the center of the universe. And after the theocentric period, man has realized na no, it is not God that is the center of meaning. Other scientists have even claimed that there is no God. So if there is no God, then how can we bring meaning to the universe? Then we ourselves are the ones that bring meaning to the universe. So we, instead of faith, we use reason to answer the mysteries of nature. So during the Enlightenment period, 100 years after that, ang gawas tong mga uh, some thinkers, philosophers, and mostly mga scientists have gone out of their shells, no? Like Albert Einstein, no, one of the provocative scientists of our time, and aside from Einstein, some other scientists who were excommunicated by the church, no, because of their claims, no, about the nature of the universe. So gikan daw ang tawo sa man sa apes, no? So I don't know if you believe on it, guys, no, but there is a possibility if we look on it in the lens of science, no. So the church doesn't consider that argument kay kuan man sa ilahang Bible, no, sa tuang Bible di ay contradictory, no. Well, anyway, that is the Enlightenment period, no? That is the history. So Kant is again the forerunner or the central figure of the Enlightenment period. So thanks to Kant, we bring reason uh, into practice, or reason was not futile. No? So to set our sails into the direction of the study of Immanuel Kant, let us first know the itinerary of our discourse. So first of all, we need to know about little about the humanity of Immanuel Kant. No, what was Kant as a person? Was Kant unsa man hilumon, langasan ba ni si Kant, no? Was Kant adventurous or dili, no? What influences Kant on doing his philosophy? What triggered him to write this piece, no? And after his biography, we talk about or we tackle about some of the elements or the models of his philosophy. No, the a priori knowledge about this understanding of morality, the concept of goodwill, the nature of imperatives, the notion of duty, intrinsic goodness, and lastly, we try to make sense on what way can we use the philosophy of Kant in our everyday living or responding some issues or abstract issues in the society. Okay, so let's start, no. So sugod ta sa biography ni Kant. No? So I forgot to put the date, no, when Kant was born and when he died, no, and where he resided throughout his whole life. Pero anyway, just to respect the soul of the dead, Kant was born on 22nd of April 1724 and died on 12th of February 1804 in Königsberg, Kaliningrad, Russia. So, Immanuel Kant, as a German philosopher, no, we know is one of the foremost thinkers of the Enlightenment period. Uh, as a German national, no, who was born in Russia, Immanuel Kant has never been to Russia. No, he has never traveled throughout his whole life. Even some neighboring countries in Russia like Slovakia, Slovenia, Cyprus, Bulgaria, he has never been to other European continents. So most of his life he stayed in his hometown in Königsberg, Kaliningrad in Russia. So I it's very peculiar, no, for a German philosopher who never even gone to Germany. Pero anyway, no, he is a German national. And another thing is that why Kant never really a fan of traveling. It is because maybe one of his background, no family background, comes from a family of pietists, no pietists. When you say pietists, these are individuals who follow strict Christian traditions. So Kant was living an ascetic life. No, he was a believer of the Christian tradition. Well, their religion is Protestant Lutheran. No, kini silang Kant and together with his family, Protestant Lutheran. He was a firm believer of Christianity. And what else? He led an ascetic lifestyle. That is why, well, way back in his childhood, he's always in their home, in their library, reading, and that gave him the interest of studying philosophy and logic. No, si Immanuel Kant. So his comprehensive and systematic work in epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, ethics, and aesthetics, greatly influenced all subsequent philosophy, especially the various schools of Kantianism and idealism. So aside from ethics, aesthetics, no, the central focus of the study of Kant in philosophy is in logic and epistemology. So later on, we will know how objective person or objective is the philosophy of Immanuel Kant. No, epistemology. It is the study of knowledge. When we speak of knowledge or acquiring knowledge, it is not that simple, no, because you need to undergo incremental stages or procedures in order to arrive into a clear and distinct idea. Mo nang if moingon ka nga kabalo ko ani nga butang kay tungod naka-experience ko aning lugara, well, that is not knowledge at all, no. Well, in order to arrive into a clear and distinct idea, we need to dichotomize or to know the parts of acquiring knowledge. So that is epistemology, no? The scope of epistemology. Another, Immanuel Kant worked as a family tutor for 9 years before he finished university. He worked for 15 years as a Privatdozent or lecturer, no, private lecturer at the University of Königsberg, until he was appointed to the chair of logic and metaphysics a position in which he remained active until a few years before his death. So Immanuel Kant was believed na he got the chair of being the, it's like the department head or the dean, no, uh, of logic and metaphysics in the age of 50. So gulang na si Kant anong panahon na. So what was Kant doing in his 30s or 20s? Most likely he's in his home living an ascetic lifestyle or living in solace, writing about one of the brilliant literatures of philosophy, the book entitled The Critique of Pure Reason. So the Critique of Pure Reason is one of the reasons why the Enlightenment project was successful. So the Critique of Pure Reason. So yeah, Kant was never that really as an adventurous person, but uh, his writers believe that he loved to play billiard. No? Si Kant, he loved wearing colorful clothes. And another thing, Kant was never married. So I don't know Kant, what kind of life is Kant living. No, I hope that he doesn't regret his life, that he was not that really adventurous. But what we can know about Kant is that he was a significant figure of the Enlightenment period. So let's start on our sail on Kant's moral philosophy. So as a starting point, let us try to ask the question: how can we live desirably, or what is your idea of a desirable world? No, how can we live desirably? So commonly, we already have assumptions for this. No, for example, maybe one of you would claim na in order to live, what kind of world do we envision? A kind of world where there is lack of conflicts, a world there is peaceful, a world where there is a freedom of expression, a world where is we can arrive into the ground of equality, for example. So that is the world that we envision. One of the many things that we envision. But if we try to look at the present situation about our world, it seems impossible. No, if you try to look on the headlines on CNN or in BBC or in Bloomberg or in ANC, uh, if you try to look on the news, no, it seems impossible. No, that is why the things that we desire on living a desirable world remains as an ideal. But since it remains as an ideal, meaning to say that it still has the potential to be attained of, no? Napa siya potential. Nganong impossible man to think ma-achieve na to. Because aside from everything is complex, the world is so very diverse. No, we are so divided. No, we are diverse. We are diverse by race. We are diverse by our skin or our color. We are diverse by our gender. We are diverse by our different perspective. No, we are different with each other. No, but uh, but despite the diversity that we have, no, we can still start somewhere in order for us to achieve a desirable living, which is later on we're going to realize, no, in the philosophy of Kant. So again, we remain hopeful on the different assumptions that concerns us, no. Okay. So sugod ta on Kant's morality and the a priori notion. So asa man ni? First of all, wala na akong ninabutang, no? There is this what we call two kinds of learning according to Kant, no? Or in the idealist philosophy. There is this what we call the a priori and the a posteriori knowledge. When you say a posteriori knowledge, it is a knowledge which is derived from experience, no? Maunang, for example, if you encounter a stranger, no, and you happen
to have a conversation with a stranger na inyong topic kay unsa mga lugar inyong natuan, and it happened nga when the stranger mentioned Oslo, ikaw na po ka experience sa Oslo, mao nang kamong duwa while nagistoryahanay mo about sa Oslo, Cebu, nakarelate mo with each other, no? Well, you have different experiences, but you have gone to same place. So you share some similar views about the beautiful place of Oslo, the beautiful white sand beaches there, the whale shark, the beautiful people who were residing there, the different individuals that you have encountered with your unique experiences, nagkasinabot mo, no? So that is an example of an a posteriori knowledge, a knowledge which is derived from experience. So you need to know, you need to experience in order to know that particular something. When you say a priori, which is the main concern of one of the main concerns of Kant's morality and philosophy, when we say a priori, it is a kind of knowledge which is derived from pure reason. No, when you say a priori knowledge, it is a knowledge that is knowable through intellect. No, knowable through intellect. So meaning to say that you don't need to experience something in order to know that particular something. So it is like saying na you don't need to be a fish in order to know how to swim, no? You don't need to jump off the cliff or to jump off the bridge in order to know the depths of the ground because you know that it is dangerous, no? That is a priori knowledge. A knowledge that is knowable through intellect. You don't need to experience it because your reason or your intellect already that particular thing is already knowable through intellect. No? So in relation to Kant's perception or conception about morality, no, according to Kant, for him, a right action consists solely in an action that is ruled and justified by a rule or principle. It is the rational and autonomous conformity of one's will to see the right, the universal, to see right, no, the universal moral law. So very clear and concise by Kant. The right action is ruled by a justified rule or principle that is always in conformity to the universal moral law. So what does Kant mean here? No, according to Kant, to simply understand this, according to Kant, no, ano siya nga, we need to act according to the maxim, no? Act according to the maxim. Ako lang siyang gitype. No, act according to the maxim. When we speak of maxim, we refer about the general rule. No? What is the general rule of the action that you are considering in a particular situation? No? The general rule, the justified rule or principle. So take this for an example. What is the first thing that you need to do when you are going to enter someone's room? Kanang musulod kag kwarto sa laing tawo, unsa may una ninyong buhaton? What is the first thing that you need to do?
Mag-knock-knock, sir.
Okay, you need to knock on the door, manuktok, no? So, ngano kinanglan man manuktok? Because it is the general rule. That is the justified rule or principle when you walk onto someone's door, no? You need to knock. And aside from it is part of a particular formal convention, it is to respect the person's privacy who is inside the room, di ba? Maunang usahay, if naay mo kalitrag sulod sa inyong kwarto, you will feel offended or you will feel disrespect from the person who entered in your room. Experience mo na kanang naray ni sulod kalit sa inyong kwarto, no? You're doing something, whatever it is, but you feel offended, no? I don't know if you experience that, guys, pero that is the general rule, no? So, unsa atong point ani is the right action is ruled by a justified rule or principle that is autonomous conformity to the universal moral law. So, what are the other examples?
Okay, if you are in a reunion, no, and you have encountered your relatives and a lot of your family members. So you see a family member that is in authority or some elderly individuals, no, members of the family. So what is the general rule there? So you need to mano or to bless the hand of the of the elder family members, no, as a sign of respect. So that is the general rule, no, when we are in a particular event. Another example, um, kanang mutuo sa balaod. Well, Kant believe, Kant claimed that according to Kant, the government is the extension of following the universal moral law because Kant believed that the laws of man are derived from God's law. No, that is how Christian Kant is. No, he is a very firm believer of Christianity. Well, he believed that man's law are derived from God's law or based on God's law. Mo na siya nag-base
Hello guys, can you am I audible? Can you hear me loud and clear? Wala mo nun akong connection.
Yes, sir. Madungog
Okay
na,
na?
sir.
Pero sir,
Okay, maiwan. Today ning tiwason. So asa naman ko dapit? Okay, ito na ko sa general rule, no? So the point of Kant here is we need to act or or our actions need to act according to the maxim. No, what is the general rule of the action that I am considering in a particular situation? So yeah, that is what Kant mean when we speak about the right action. No, following the general rule or the justified rule or principle of a particular act that you are considering in a particular situation. So that also let us realize about the notion of the goodwill. When we speak of goodwill, it is the only thing that is good without qualification. So how can we simply understand goodwill? Dili na pod mo appear ang concept na importante ang motivation when we speak of the right action, no? The will to do, in order to realize the will to do the right thing, one needs to have the proper motivation when doing a particular action. So it depends on the motivation. Maunang when we when we make a particular course of action, sometimes we need to qualify it to truly know if it is really moral or if it is really good or if it is really right or if it is wrong, no? The motivation is very important when we speak of making a particular course of action or realizing the goodwill. So the goodwill is the will to do the right thing, no? Maunang part of the will to do the right thing is the notion of duty, because when you wanted to do the right thing, you are you are um, you are put into responsibility, di ba? When you're going to do the right thing, you realize responsibility or duty about the particular course of action that you're going to perform. Mao nang there is a distinction between I want and I ought. So motivation here has something to do with this. Mao nang when you say I want, these are the things that most likely you will surely enjoy or be happy. Why would you want something if it is undesirable to you, di ba? When you say I ought, no, whether you like it or not, whether you enjoy it or not, you need to do it because it is your responsibility to do it, no? So yeah, I ought is the part that presupposes notion that presupposes duty, no? Munang when we speak of moral action, let us try to qualify it, no, when we speak of duty about I want and I ought. For example, donating money to charity. Diba donating money to charity is good in itself, diba? It is moral, it is right. But how can we truly know if it is really right? So how can we truly know that it is the right thing to do or the goodwill? So when we say, for example, I'll pretend that I am a multimillionaire, no? So motivation, no? If I say I want, no, I want to donate money to charity because I wanted to be in the national news or to be in the national headlines. To I wanted the people to admire me that I am this person, no, very generous person. So basically, you're just saying na, or I am just saying na, I wanted to seek admiration through giving, no. Or when we say I ought, uh, I want to donate money to charity because I wanted to help the kids and the elderly, no, or the kids in the orphanage or the elderly in the home for the aged institution. So I wanted to help them for the sake of helping or for the sake of giving. I just wanted to
share my goodness, no? No? Or you share your blessings because and you contribute you use your blessings to contribute on giving life to other individuals. So I put my name on, as an anonymous donor, no, and I put 1 million in the bank of of the institution. So big difference when we say I want and I ought. So it speaks about what is the motivation of the action, no? What is the motivation of the action that you are considering to do o ng realizing the right thing to do or the goodwill, no, it needs to qualify, no, it needs to be qualified. So moral actions are not spontaneous. If I see someone in need of help, I may be inclined to look the other way, but I will recognize that my duty is to help. So it is not spontaneous. So this is like saying again another part of Kant's um, moral philosophy, that duty or responsibility is a priori knowledge, meaning to say that it is already knowable through intellect. So duty or responsibility is part of our reason. It is part of the making of our humanity. You don't need to experience being helped in order to know how to help others, no? So duty is already there, no? It is already knowable through intellect. That is why moral actions are not spontaneous. Since it is already there, it doesn't happen by by coincidence, no? Mo nang if you walk, for example, along the road, and if you see someone that is in need of help, your consciousness or your reason will always tell you na do the right thing, help the person, di ba? Whether you ignore the person or not, your reason will always tell you na help that person. And that reason that is telling you is the a priori, no? The a priori knowledge. Mo nang most of the time, no, when we speak about duty, most of the time we need to Kant would say na we need to follow our reason, no, to follow the a priori. Mo nang niingon si Kant na uh, duty is already a common sense, or doing good is already a common sense. It is already part within our own system, no? So yeah, Kant is bringing us into another way of understanding moral philosophy. So he puts moral philosophy on the realms of logic and epistemology. Maunang systematic ni si Kant, no? Maunang when we speak of right action, no? Again, we refer it about it consists about of a justified rule or principle that is in conformity to the universal moral law. That is why we need to know the general rule of the action that we are considering to do in the particular situation that we have. And part of knowing the action that we consider, we need also to know what is the motivation of our action. Because whether we like it or not, on our actions, we always take responsibility with it, no? Because since we are interrelated with each other, we are interrelated not only to people but also to nature. What happens to the world will also take account unto us. Manang importante kayo ang motivation when we make a particular course of action. And part of doing a course of action is that duty, no? Duty. Okay. So, diretso lang ta, no? Para mahuman dayon. The nature of imperative. So, this is the one of the most significant highlights of the philosophy of Kant, no? In his epistemology or logic. We can also use this in his concept of morality, no? Okay, there are two, the hypothetical and the categorical. When we say hypothetical, no, if you want, you ought. The ought or the duty is conditioned by your desires, wants, and goals. Our goals are grounded in self-interest. So meaning to say, when we speak of hypothetical imperative, these are commands you follow if you want something, no?
all of the things that we do every day is conditioned by our self-interest. Ngano pamanta mo attend og klase? Because part of your goals or your self-interest is you wanted to become an engineer in the future. So you don't you must not fail this class in order for you to become one. O nang mosulod ta sa klase, mao nang mubasa ta, mao nang mutuon ta, o nang we spend some late nights because we wanted to achieve that particular desire or goal, no? Ngano man matulog ta because if your body will tell you to rest, then rest, no? Ayaw kog sa imong kaugalingon nga mapulaw or unsa no nga madaot ka. If you are hungry, then eat, no? If you are full, nagiingnan ka sa tawo nga mukaon, you are free to refuse to do so because busog ka. That is the hypothetical imperative. These are commands you follow if you want something. No, it depends on your will kung sa imong ganahan. No, hypothetical imperative. Actions that are grounded by our desires or self-interest. And second is the categorical imperative, which is the most important imperative that Kant would like us to realize now. Because this is the categorical imperative presupposes or realizes moral obligation. No, diri na mo fall ang moral obligation. So when we speak of the categorical imperative, there are actually 4 formulations in the original philosophy of Kant. But in morality, there are 2 that we can attribute. No, the first formulation said that not only according to maxim, which you can at the same time be a universal law without contradictions. I guess we already know it. No, that is in the first part when I said that the right action is consists of a justified rule or principle. No, we need to act according to the general rule, no, of the action that we are considering in a particular situation. Mo na importante kay nang mo follow sa balaod, importante kay nang mo follow sa structure para makabalot para maka-avoid ta og conflicts, maka-avoid tag tensions, and since we wanted to live a desirable life, no, a desirable world, then in order for us to maintain order in the world, then we need to follow the first formulation, no? Act according to the maxim, no? Act according to the justified principle. So, nga na, no? To avoid troubles as well. Second formulation is act so that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or that of another, always as an end and never as a means. What does Kant meant to say here? Kant is saying na we need to treat each other with dignity and value. We must not treat each other like cell phones. If makrack ang cellphone, if dili nakagana ng cellphone, you can replace it with a new one. That is not how relationships are made or intersubjectivity is, no? That is why we need to treat each other with dignity and value, regardless of our differences, no? Differences of our sex, gender, color, our language, our culture, our traditions. Whatever differences that we have, we need to treat each other with value and dignity. That is the only way we can exercise ourselves as human, or to know ourselves that we are truly human in a general way, no? Act so that I mean treat the person as an end and never as a means, no? Maunang speaking about friendship, for example, Kant would say through the second formulation, if your friend is sticking on you just because you have money, just because you are good looking, or just because you are intelligent, no, na naka-benefit sila ana, then much better to unfriend that individual, no? That is not how we establish a healthy relationship. So we don't treat each other as utility, no? We need to treat each other with dignity and value. That is why for example, when we speak of friendship, well, friendship can also be fall into morality, no? Because betrayal, no? Betrayal is an immoral act, no? It is an immoral act. Okay, if we treat each other as utility, no, as like being a material, there is a possibility that that person will just throw you off the bus, no? So, murag cellphone niya, na-crack, i-ilisan ng lain. So, betrayal. And that is not how we treat human beings, no? Maunang uh, Kant, on the end of his philosophy, we fall onto the concept of respect, or on the notion, or brought us onto the notion of respect. So Kant brought the notion of respect, or the Achtung, no, in German, to the center of moral philosophy for the first time. The proper object of respect is the will, no? If you remember, the good will, the right thing to do, no? Respecting a person involves issues related to the will, knowledge, and freedom. Kant sees people as autonomous, meaning that they give themselves their own laws. As a person has his own laws, the disrespect of their laws is not acceptable in their code. So when we speak of respect, we do not only limit it to a performance, no, of making a justified rule or principle, or based on social conventions, just because he or she is an elder or an authority, you respect it. Well, it is based on social convention, you need to respect it. But if we put ourselves, or we brought ourselves onto the deeper notion of respect, respect is much more than that. So what does respect needs? Since respecting a person involves issues related to the will, no? In order for us to respect each one, or to treat each other with value and dignity, we need to know how to understand with each other. No, I mean how to understand one another. No? How to understand one another. When you try to understand one another, no, it depends our relationship or our intersubjectivity as a human person. Maunang understanding each one suspends us to our judgment. Maunang sometimes kita ra ba mga tao, we are so quick to judge on the things that we don't like, or we tend to disagree, di ba? Nya usay mas stress ra ta kay tungod niya we have hatred about this particular thing, or about this particular person. So Kant would like to tell us na instead of giving or having hatred with the person, then why not try to respect the person? So what kind of respect? In a way that we are willing to understand the person, no? So that the person as well in return will uh, also understand you, no? Mo nang usay dili ta mag-abot kay tungod uh, we do not have grounds for listening, no? Mura ra gud na siya usa ka couple nga nag-away, no? Ngano, why do you think na if mag-away ang usa ka couple, nganong gasyagitanay man sila bisag tapad ra sila? What do you think is the reason? Nganong ang mga nag-uyab bisag katapad ra sila o maglalis, nganong magsyagitanay man? Unsa man ang rason? What do you think is the reason? In your own opinion, no? Wala pa mo ka-experience, ana? Wala pa yung mga uyab? Unsa man? Or ka-experience na ba mo nga gisyagitan mo sa inyong uyab? Wala mo uyab? Sige lang, no? Well, one of its analogy nga, ano man bisag duol kayo mo, ano magsyagitanay man. It is because kay tungod nga bisag physically duol mo pero inyong kasing-kasing layo kayo. Mao nang syagitan gyud nimo kay para madungog siyang kasing-kasing. Well, yeah, kay basically kay layo inyong kasing-kasing. That is why in order
sir.
Unsa?
Creswin?
Katulay pa ni sana Sir Echevarria.
Kamao jud ni ko ano, kaning mga lover boys diri no, mga eksperyensado gid sila may ngani, pero anyway no, um yan na basta for example si Vanessa, unsa man is Vanessa?
Ana sir, experienceado kay na Echevarria sir.
Oo ba? So ni naman ni nay uyab diri si Echevarria diri sa kini nga section. Oh. Wala or nay na crush sikna. Nay na crush ni Vanessa diri no niya. Di lang gisunlog-sunlog. Di ra ba na magsugod no. Pero anyway, yana magid na. Pero anyway no, when we speak of respect, we mean about understanding the person. O nang tinanglan gyud nato maminaw sa usa ka tawo para masabtan pud nato ngano siyang ingana, no. So if you try to listen or to try to give your attention on understanding the person, you will also realize in the end that this person, no, that you hated is just a product of the pains or just a product of someone's hatred pud. Why do you think there are bullies? Why do you think there are tawo nga manghilabot? It is because they are a product of the same oppression of bullying, for example, or the product of that particular kind of brokenness. So they are just a product as well. They are also lowly, no? So luoy kayo o nang para magkasinabot ta, no? To truly respect one another, then we need to know how to understand each one. Manang in terms of equality, no, maunang kinanglan yun og understanding when we speak of equality. For example, on gender, well, this is on my subject, one of my subjects na I teach gender and society. Ngano man naa pa may mga tawo nga dili sila open about different genders, no, ngano man na ay mga pamilya nga dili sila mudawat if their sons or daughters are gay, no, ngano man. So it is because nga dili nila masabtan, it is because that they already closed their doors of understanding the person, because whether we like it or not, the person is a mystery like the world. There are lots of mysteries about the world that we do not know. How much more of the person? Wala ta kaila sa person. Maunang we can only know about the person. That is why true respect, no, in the lens of Immanuel Kant, no, we let the thing reveal itself, no, para masabtan gyud nato ngano siya ingana o masabtan nato unsa iyang humanity, no, masabtan nato unsa iyang weaknesses, masabtan nato unsa siya ka special nga tawo, no. Through our differences or through our uniqueness, we arrive ourselves into a common ground wherein everyone knows how to treat each other as equal. Maunang you cannot force equality unless if you are willing to sit down and talk about it, no? So ingana, no, one of the many examples when we speak about Kant's respect. So to end, according to Kant, no, morality teaches how to be happy and be worthy of happiness. So yeah, if your happiness distracts the rights and privilege of other individuals, then that is not happiness at all. So sometimes we also need to qualify ourselves to be worthy of happiness, no? Kay if dili, then we would be reckless and we would never really know on how we are going to identify what is the right course of action, and that the failure to identify the right course of action would bring misery to ourselves and also to other individuals. So we take into account of what we do, no? So that is Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy. So are there any questions, clarifications, violent reactions, confusions, contradictions, or any insights, any realizations or sentiments regarding the matter? Does morality depends on religion? That's a good question, no? In Kant's in the Kantian idea, it can, because when we speak of the justified rule or principle, we are referring about the structure. We are also referring about the structure. And religion is one of the structures in the society that promotes morality. So, unsa may giingon sa sibahan sa inyuha. So, sa man, thou shall not steal, thou shall not kill. Those are manifestations of moral practices, di ba? So, in the Kantian sense, since Kant is a Christian, no, a very devout Christian, because he comes from a pietist family. Morality may not depend on religion, but morality has some elements that religion can offer. Monang, we need to follow on the structure. We need to attend on the general rules of the action that we are considering in a particular situation. So we can learn about it in the church, no? A lot about it in the church. So it doesn't, morality doesn't depend on religion as a whole, but there are elements on morality that religion can offer. No? Okay, well, anyway, no? Ang usara gyud nga dapat Immanuel Kant in general is the importance of objectivity. So we need to be objective onto our actions in order for us to be guided and to prevent ourselves into trouble and to prevent ourselves on distracting the lives of other individuals. No, unang we need to follow on the structure, to follow the government, the ordinances, the system of our family, the good system, no, the good system lang, to follow what our church is telling us about what is good, no? We need to be objective, no? We need to follow the general rule. Okay, can you consider Kantianism better than consequentialism? Well, on a personal note, yes, I can consider Kantianism as a more rational and reasonable moral approach. Actually, Kant is an enemy or an opponent of utilitarianism. So remember that utilitarianism concerns itself, the concept concerns itself into the maximization of pleasure, meaning to say that we need to know the best interest of the individuals as a kind of greatest good. Pero pwede nga ang best interest sa tawo kay makadaot sa ubang tawo. So for that, even that in consequentialism or in the utilitarian concept, what matters the most is the consequence, dili ang means, no? So okay sa unsa imong means, even killing, as long as it provides good consequence. That is one of the objections in consequentialism or in utilitarianism. Monang for Kant, what matters the most is the means, no? The means is important upon arriving to a particular good or arriving to a particular end. You cannot use murder as a kind of means to arrive to a particular good consequence. A good example for that of the objection of consequentialism is the drug war of Duterte. No, so what does it good? What good does it bring to the society ang drug war? So it becomes much worse. well, the cause of the drug war was noble or was nice, no, in order to prevent crime rates or to prevent crime. But killing itself is a crime. You cannot solve a problem with a problem. That is why the problem itself of killing has never has never solved that. Even the justice system was even cheated, no. So that is one of the objections or the flaws of consequentialism, no? So you can say that Kantianism is much more better, no, in on a personal note. Pero consequentialism has its practical uses po. Pero daghan ra gyud siya objections, no. Wala siguro ni na foresee nilang Mill and Bentham. Pero anyway, no, thank you for those for the question, no. Since we don't have a lot of time, if I can just borrow 2 minutes, no. Next week we are going to discuss a whole new concept, no, which is gonna be opposite on Kant, no. Another German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche, no, one of the most famous philosophers of our time that influences the modern consciousness. So, ngano opposite mo siya kay Kant? Si Kant is much more on the objectivity, no? Objectivity of reason or on the objective side. Nietzsche is much more on the subjective side. So, we need to know that little background about Nietzsche, no? Nietzsche hates Christianity, no? He hates Christianity because according to him, Christianity is a slave mentality. So slave, maunang naingon si Nietzsche na faith is faith is a sign of weakness, no? Faith is a sign of weakness. So we are going next week. We are going to explore the philosophy of the Antichrist of Nietzsche, no, or his gay science. So very different ni si Nietzsche, no. He has a very pessimistic philosophy as well. He is a pessimist. But one thing that we can learn to look forward on Nietzsche's philosophy is the idea that how can we discover power without how can we discover power or true power within ourselves, no? So we do not get power coming from others, from the society, from the church, from the institutions or organizations, or coming from our family and parents. It comes from us, no? It comes from us, no? True strength comes from us, no? So that is for Nietzsche, no? Just a very general overview. Are you familiar with nihilism? No? Familiar mo nihilism? Are you familiar with it? The concept in philosophy wherein everything is meaningless, no? Life is meaningless, then why are we here right now if everything is meaningless? So it is like saying na Nietzsche is trying to question na how can we bring meaning into this meaninglessness or into this world that is meaningless, into a world wherein there are lots of slaves. How can you be a master of your own soul, no? So Nietzsche will teach us that next week, no? In his atheistic philosophy. So it will gonna be another kind of perspective, no? Mo nang next week, no, just to tell you in advance, let us put God or put our belief in God in the back seat and let us put Nietzsche in the front seat and let us try to understand him on how he will help us on understanding ourselves and morality, no? Moral relativism. So if there are no other questions, are there questions or are there none? Wala na, I guess. Wala na, no?
Wala, sir.
Okay.
Wala, sir.
So I'll do my best to get a short article about Nietzsche, no? I'll do my best this weekend. Hopefully there is an easy article for you guys to read. Sabtan din nato or natay background gamay ni Nietzsche.
So that would be all, guys, and I hope that you got something out of our engagement about the importance of Kant's moral perspective, no? And I hope that you also differentiate the different moral perspective that we have discussed from the past couple of weeks. So which do you think for you is fitting, no? So we can compare, but at the same time, all of them are useful, no, in flourishing our own lives. So that would be all, guys, and I hope that you will have a great weekend ahead. Don't skip your meals and keep safe, no. See you around, or yeah, see you around. So you may now dismiss.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
See you guys. Keep safe, no. Take care.